Okay, so this is a marker demo, but also a demo for showing how you can shade your storyboards to make them look nice and pretty. So for starters, these are the tools you're gonna need. They're available in the store. You have ice gray number 1, ice gray number 3, and ice gray number 4. There is an ice gray number 2. It's not available in the store, but you don't really need it by using like 2 applications of a 1. You wait, so this will be a 1. You can get a 2 value by just going over it a few times and you'll get a little bit of a darker value. Or going over it once, so you can get 3 shades out of 1 marker. There is also a blender. This is optional. It's up to you if you want to just kind of try it out. It's just for, like it says, blending colors together. The colors themselves will blend, so if you have wet, you can get a wet on wet look. Once they're dry a little bit, you know, you can go a little bit closer without them blending together. If it's dry, you can use the blender over top of the whole thing to kind of make it blend together. It'll just re-wet it, and you get a couple of different effects with that. The ones that are available in the store are Letraset. The most popular ones and the more expensive ones are the Copic. There's all different kinds. I don't know, I have no preference. I just get kind of whatever's on sale. But I mean, try them out. I have a huge array of different ones. This one is Touch. This one is Alpha Design Marker. They have different, you can get different tips. I like to get ones with a big tip and a tiny tip. But I have some that are brush pens and all different kinds with finer tips. But these are mostly the same, small tip and a large tip. They come in all different colors. You can get, what I'm going to show you guys today are working in grays, but you could get, you know, different values of blue. And I do the same thing as long as you're getting 5 values, so you can even, you know, add them in. So you want to start out with making sure that you have some sort of light source. So normally you're going to designate a light source, you know, either upper right or upper left are good places to have a light source. That emulates the sunrise and the sunset, so it's a good time to take photographs. It's a good time to show lighting in that sort of sense, and it can give you some really good shadows that end up on the page. Now, if you have a specific time of day that your story needs to take place, high noon for example, dusk, then you're going to have to adjust your light source for that time. But the most appealing is going to be, you know, up in the upper right corner or the upper left corner. So then you're going to start out with the background. It's good to start out in the back for a daytime scene. Nighttime is going to be a bit different. You're going to start out probably with whatever your lightest colors are, so the light source probably. So it might be the moon, might be candles, it might be just an actual physical light or lamp that the light is coming from. So in this one you're going to start with the background because it has the least amount of contrast. You're going to start with a 2 value. So have a value scale done up here. The 1, I'm just going to go over it again. Number 1 value is just white, there's no marker. The second value is going to be ice gray number 1. I'm just going to re-go over here. Then number 3, the reason I'm going over is just it's faded out. I've copied them quite a bit. I'm going to go over number 3 again. Number 3 is ice gray number 3, and number 4 is also ice gray number 3. We've gone over it a couple of times. That way you're going to get a darker version. So you can get a couple of grays, like I said, out of each of these. And then the last one, your 5th value, is ice gray number 4. I'll just go over that again. You can see that once they're wet, the nice thing about these is that you can get a bunch of different kinds of looks. So you can get wet on wet look. So the wet on wet look, you just have wet marker. And if you go in with another value, you'll be able to blend them together and you'll get this kind of bleed watercolor kind of effect. You can get dry, overlap. Once they're dry, you get a little bit of a bleed, but it's not too bad. And then with the blender, you can use the blender over both of them to mix them together, and then both versions will be a little bit lighter, but they'll blend together a little bit you know, more subtly. So we want to get the background, you want to have low contrast. You're going to use a 2 and a 3 only. So it means that you're only indicating highlights and shadows, and very few of those. The great part about markers is you want to start with the lightest one. So we get the ice gray number 1. And what I can do, we're talking about the background, we're talking about the walls back here and the exterior out here. So the best part about these, your storyboards are going to be a little bit smaller than this, so you won't waste as much markers. So we can actually go over the entire background here. And I'm using strokes that are going to be indicative of the direction that these objects are placed. So if it's a beam going this way, I'm using this kind of stroke. If it's, you know, the top part going down, this fence. I think I'm gonna leave this because, well, maybe I'll just do everything. So I can do everything with the 2 value. I can let it dry for a minute or carry on with other panels and do that the same thing as we go. So it can be kind of a process. And I can take the number 3 and I can go in and start deciding where I'm gonna have some shadows. So if I have a light source, let's designate that the light source is up here in the corner. I can think that, okay, well, back here, I'm gonna get some you know, a little bit of shadow coming back as we get further back into the room. This will probably be light. So I can think about creating some arcs for those shadows. We don't really necessarily want to have hard cornered shadows. Nice arcs are going to make it like nice and appealing. So same thing here. So we can make these arbitrary arcs. Okay, fill that in. And if we make them kind of offset, it'll be a little bit more realistic. So same idea, taking the marker and using them in the same direction. I'm not being super precise with the marker, and that's okay, you don't have to. This is a quick sketch of your idea and what you want to show. So you can go in again, and maybe up here in the corners, you're always going to have an arc of the shadow that's going to be there. We can make the beams maybe a little bit darker here as well. Maybe the fence back here is a little bit darker. And don't worry, this will always dry much lighter. The same values that I'm using here, this is what it's going to look like when it's dry. So we've got all this, so maybe some shadow here. And you just want to think about the light source, how that would be coming in. So if it's coming in from this window, this is an exterior, you know, shining in, where's it going to hit? Possibly, realistically, this would all be in shadow back here. And then we're going to kind of indicate that that's outside a little bit more and that this stuff's shining in. Because the light source is like this might be actually a little bit harsher. I think the rest of it looks a little bit better. So just another little bit of a different version. This would be like more light. Everything's hitting these walls. You know, maybe less light. You know, this is more of an overcast day. So we're getting more shadow up here. So next we want to think about the midground. So the midground is the girl. Midground, we're going to have a medium contrast. We're going to use values 2, 3, and 4. Or actually we just need the 2 and the 3. So I can go in with the 2 and kind of maybe lay out some shadows. The bottom of her. So we always want to think the light source is coming in from here. The opposite side is going to get the shadow. Oh, and I'm using number 4. I'm using number 3. Well, actually, this is okay. So 4 will give me some harder shadows. 3, where we're seeing a little bit of the light here. And maybe on her hair. Maybe I want to make her hair dark, so we'll add this in and add a dark value where she's got maybe a black belt. Then with the 4, I'll go in and make some darker values here. Okay. So once we're finished with the midground. Then you want to focus on the foreground here, which is just these two trees. They're gonna have the highest contrast, so we wanna have white. Okay, so this is 2 actually, sorry. So we wanna have everything else is gonna be number 1. So in this instance, realistically, you could take a number 2 and color every single thing except for your foreground elements, and then lay in your 3s and 4s for shadows. 3s only for the backgrounds, 4s for your midground character to make the contrast a little bit more, or even just objects that are in the midground. This will be more useful for that. The foreground elements, we want to have a number 1, so there's going to be elements or parts of these elements that are left white. The 3, so we can go in with number 3 and start out laying down shadow. And you can think about, okay, well, this is a tree, applying your shadows in a textural way, the way that you would maybe draw the leaves on. That's going to add a little bit of depth to your marker drawings. So the light source is coming in from here. Know that the bottoms are going to be dark. Once I have the 3 in, then I can go back in with a number 4. Or sorry, the 5 value, which is a number 4. And to get the 5, we can just go over it a couple times. So I got a really high contrast there. And I did the same thing here with the mid shot. So you want to think about what the foreground element is, which is the girl. She's going to have the highest contrast now. So she's going to have white on her. The midground is maybe the window, and the background is the outside of the window, the bushes and the sky. So they're going to have the least amount of contrast. The midground, a little bit more contrast. And the foreground, the highest amount of contrast, maybe even going in there with another, going in there again with the number 4 after it's dry. It'll make stuff pop. And you can go over it again. And I'll make everything a little bit darker. Especially if you want to indicate, you know, maybe that her hair is quite dark. And that maybe she has a black belt. So again, light source coming in from top right. Then same thing with the close-up shot. The foreground element is the girl, and then really we just have the background element, which is the wall. So just use like kind of a 2 and a 3 here, but use a circle to, you know, kind of frame her in. That's it for the basics. Next, I'm going to talk about focus. So there's a quick little trick that you can do to make your focus, or to pull your focus where you want it to go. And that's just to draw a circle around the focus. So you can take your number 1 marker using your 2 value and, you know, just draw a circle around your focus. Using the number 2 value, shade everything except for what your actual focus is. So that your focus is white. So in this instance is the girl. And here, you know, you may want to go over it again a second time. Once you have the 2 value done, I've got like a little drawing here. So inside, she's going to be white. She might have some indications of shadow on her. So we're going to use kind of the same shadows as before. Now it's up to you. You may want to indicate that she has dark hair or something like this. Or in this instance, maybe you want to indicate that she has a black belt. But the majority of her is going to be white. And I would still come back once this number 5 is dry and maybe just do some indications of shadow on the dark parts as well. So once I have that done, we want to leave the focus white. And then we want to take and just do the outside. We can use the number 3 for the whole entire thing. So once you have the 3 in, we can wait for it to dry, and then we can use the 5 value to go in and add some darker shadows in there, especially to foreground objects. So we can add that in maybe a little bit to some of the details on the edge. And you'll get something a little bit more similar to this, where that focus is going to stand out. For her, as part of the story, she's going to have dark hair, so I think I might go back and just kind of make her pop a little bit more by, you know, maybe adding in that she has dark hair. And maybe darker eyes as well. But the main part is that there's going to be a circle around here that's going to show exactly where we want the focus. It's pretty straightforward, I think, and it's a good little trick. You don't want to get too much into coloring everything so intently for using the other method. But some parts you might want to use this, other parts you might want to use the other method. The other method is good for really establishing shots, longer shots. You know, this method much better for maybe close-up shots or pulling the focus where you want it to be if there's a mix of something happening. So we can go in and, you know, just designate some of these parts darker. I was copying some of the shadows that I had before. Focus. A lot better for interior because it can seem a little bit weird. This could be a lighting, you know, seen as something that's happening with the lighting. And exterior, it's going to be weird. Like, why is there lighting that's, you know, just on that character? So that can be a little bit weird. So it's better for interior shots, or even nighttime scenes where there might be a spotlight or something. That would be good. So these are just some additional tips. As you can see, markers go through paper. So you always want to have something underneath your paper that you're working on so that it can absorb that. And you can just keep reusing that sheet of paper to absorb the ink. Some of the other things here, you want to use directional strokes to describe, you know, what's happening on the page. So for instance, if we have, you know, these planks here, I'm going to want to try to make my strokes go in that correct direction. If I do that, don't worry too much about going outside of the lines, but you want to try to keep it, you know, fairly neat and tidy. Some of it might go out a little bit, and that's okay. And you maybe want to draw outside of the lines. That's okay as well. When you go to shoot it, that's the important part, that you're cutting it in for your animatics. It's going to be cut in closer. So we can see here already it's getting the look of a deck. Just by indicating and using those strokes. So same thing goes for the bushes as well.